You got me so high, high, high. You got me so high.
Hey y'all, so this is my first video. I was gonna do your typical, get to know me introduction video or whatever, but I haven't decided on how I'm gonna do that yet. So my first video will be about my tonsillectomy. So I'm about to tell you about that, and it is one crazy story. Don't mind my hair because I did not do it, which is why I got this headband on, so do not judge me. Well, I mean, you can because I don't really care, but yeah. So by the way, I don't have any makeup on. I didn't even put any eyelashes on or anything. I felt like I should just be natural for my first video. And most of the time you'll probably catch me with makeup, well, without makeup, because I'm just not the type of person to do it every day, all day. But I don't know, maybe for these videos I'll do it. But anyway, so the reason why I'm doing this video is because when it came time for my tonsillectomy, there was maybe like 2 or 3 videos on YouTube, and I really wanted to know what it was like. So this is how it started. So I got my tonsillectomy in July of 2019, so a little over a year ago. And it started off, I had got sick really bad. But this time, I always get sick, but this time, like, it felt like my throat was closing up on me. So there was day and night, me in and out of the hospital. I had to get shots, a couple steroid shots. I had to take some pills and everything to get my throat, the swelling in my throat, to go down. So after a while, I'm like, I just can't kick this sickness. Like, I cannot kick this, get my throat to go back to normal. So my last emergency room run was in the middle of the night. I was actually at work. At this point, I was working overnight, and I was like, I need to leave because I can hardly breathe. Like, it had gotten that bad. So after going back and forth with my supervisor, because she did not want to let me go, I ended up going to the emergency room, and they were like, yeah, you need to go see an ear, nose, throat doctor, blah, blah, blah. You need your tonsils removed. So I was like, okay. So then I had to get more medicine. So the next day I had scheduled an appointment to go see the ear, nose, throat doctor. So I got in like a couple days later, and the dude was like, yeah, you need your tonsils removed like ASAP. They look really bad. So I was like, okay. So he's like, I can get you in, since yours are bad, I can get you in 3 days. So I was like, okay. So I go home and I'm waiting 3 days until the surgery. So y'all, so I go in. Well, before I go in, I'm on YouTube looking up all these videos, and I cannot find not one good video. And one video scared me. This girl was talking about, yeah, I ate some spicy and then I just started vomiting blood. So I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. But I ended up going. And so the day I went to surgery, I went in, and they gave me a Tylenol. They gave me some pain pills, and that was to help me for after the surgery when I woke back up. So eventually, after check-in and them talking to me, giving me the medicine, looking at my throat again, doctors coming in. Mind y'all, this is my first surgery ever, so I'm like scared as all get out. But when it became my time, they ended me taking back to the OR. So if y'all didn't know, tonsillectomies are an outpatient surgery, so you leave right after. So they take me in and they get me onto the bed, and they're like, hey, like you need to calm down because we cannot put the anesthesia in you or anything until you're calm. So I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting trying to calm down, but I'm like, you can't tell somebody to calm down and you about to go in their throat and cut them open in their throat. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm sitting here trying to breathe. Then eventually I catch my breath, and they're like, okay, your hand's gonna get a little hot because that's where they put the anesthesia. It was in my hand. So I was like, okay. So then my hand gets hot like real quick, and I was like, ooh, that was warm. And they were like, yeah, next thing I know, I'm out like a light. So I'm out, and then I wake up to them pulling the tube out my throat. So they had put a tube in my throat so that I could breathe through the whole surgery. So I woke up, they were taking the tube out, and I was panting like I couldn't breathe. And so they're like, just calm down, catch your breath. It is okay. You just came out of surgery. you know, just catch a breath. So I was like, okay. So then they get me back in the room. Mind you, I'm high off these pain pills and this anesthesia. Everything they got me on, I'm high. So I go back into the room. They're like, okay, you can get dressed now. And I remember I was like, I want a popsicle. Like, I'm hungry. I need something to eat because one thing I did forget to tell y'all was before the surgery, I wasn't able to eat. So, you know, I was supposed to eat 24 hours before the surgery, but even without that, my throat was so bad. It had been about a week and a half to 2 weeks since I had actually eaten something. So I was like, you know, I'm hungry. My tonsils are going, like, give me something, give me a popsicle. So they go give me a popsicle, and I'm still naked in a gown. So they go give me a popsicle, I eat it, and I'm high, and I'm eating while I'm high, and then the popsicle drop on the floor, and I'm just eating a stick, thinking I'm still eating a popsicle. So then they were like, okay, you know, we're gonna leave. We're gonna let you get your clothes on. So I was like, okay. So the nurse helped me put my clothes on, and I'm getting dressed, and then they had to like help lift me up to get me into the wheelchair, y'all, because I'm like overweight at this point. So they helped me get into the wheelchair, and then they wheeled me to my mom's car. My mom picked me up, and we go back to the house. So I end up taking a nap once I get back to my mom's house. And maybe 3 hours later, I wake up, and I'm like, okay, you know, my throat feel better. And so I guess what they said was within the first, 2 days, you'll feel like you're back to normal, but you still can't eat anything. So the only thing I can do is drink a lot of water, but I can't drink out of a straw. So I'm drinking water for my first 2 days. And the third day, I'm telling my mom, like, I want to go home. Like, I'm tired of being at your house. Let me go home. So she's like, no, you need to stay here. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, I can take care of myself. So eventually she takes me home. So y'all, this is where it getting crazy at. So I'm at home, and a couple days later, I'm on like day 4. Yeah, I'm on day 4 at this time. So I had really bad nausea. So I didn't know what to do. And after the surgery, they put a little patch behind your ear, and that's for the nausea. And it gets rid of it. It lasts like, 48 hours, something like that. I can't remember. And it's these little patches. So I ended up calling my doctor, and they sent my mom, they sent a prescription for some more. My mom went and picked it up for me. So then she brought it to me, and I had put another one behind my ear. And then that had, lasted maybe a couple hours. It didn't work as good as it did the first time. So I'm like, okay. So another thing I noticed is that, you know, I'm constipated. And so my doctor was like, you know, if you're so constipated after day 3, like, you need to call back up here and we'll send you something because it's from the pain pills. So I'm like, okay. So I'm already on every 3 hours. I have to go back and forth between hydrocodone and oxycodone. So like, I'm on a bunch of painkillers. So I was like, okay. So I end up calling up there, and they're like, yeah, the doctor's in surgery. You can't talk to him. Just call your PCP and make an appointment with them or whatever. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I try and make an appointment with my primary care provider, my PCP. And she is always booked up. So she's booked up for 2 months. So I couldn't see her. So they're like, okay, you're going to have to go see somebody else. I'm not going to say her name. But I was like, okay, whatever. So I end up getting in maybe like 2 hours later. So I'm at my appointment, and I'm telling her, you know, I'm constipated from the painkillers. And I was like, this is my first surgery or whatever, but I know I'm not supposed to like swallow anything that's like acidic or anything like that. So I was like, can you give me something that's more like a pill? You know, because I've tried everything else. And so then she's like, you know, we don't really have anything that's a pill, but I can give you this liquid called magnesium citrate. So, you know, I'm like, that kind of sound low, like something I should be taking. And I was like, you sure I can take that? And she was like, yeah, you know, I know what you're going through. I had a tonsillectomy before. I had 4 kids, and I will tell you, I'd rather give birth than have another tonsillectomy. Like, she's really relating to me. Like, she knows everything that I've been through. So I'm like, okay, sis, know where I'm coming from. So she knows this magnesium citrate is going to be good. And I was like, okay, like, you sure you've been through this, so you know, so I'm trusting you. She's like, yeah, you'll be fine. So I'm like, okay. I go pick up the magnesium citrate, and it come in a bottle. I think I still got it. I probably still got it. And I'm like, okay. So I look at the bottle, and I'm like, it's a clear liquid. So I'm like, okay. And so the instructions say take 1 shot every hour until some results show. So I'm like, okay. So I go home, and I'm taking my first shot. And when I go to swallow it, it burnt my throat. So it burnt my throat, and I was trying not to cough because after your tonsillectomy, you cannot cough. So I'm sitting here trying to hold it in my coffin, and I just chase it down with some water. So I'm chugging down some water, and it is not working. So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna go take a nap. So go get in my bed, and I take me a nap. I wake up about an hour later, and I was like, you know, I'm hungry. Let me eat me a popsicle because that's all I can eat at the time. So this is day 5 of post-op. So I go get me a popsicle, and I go get back in the bed. So I'm eating my popsicle, scrolling on social media. I don't know, probably Facebook or Twitter or something. And I was like, I need to go to the bathroom, but I still got half a popsicle left. So I'm like, dang, like I need to finish this. But I had to go to the bathroom so bad, I just hurry up and ran with the popsicle still in my hand and my phone in my other hand. So I go to the bathroom, and I take a bite of my popsicle while I'm sitting there. And I try and swallow it, and I'm like, I know this popsicle did not have that much juice. So I go to swallow again because it's like some more in there. And I'm like, what? So I stand up and I spit in the sink. It's blood. So I'm like, what the, like, what? So I'm sitting here scared. And so I like look up, and it's more comes out. So I bend right back down and spit some more out into the sink. And so I'm like, anytime I try to talk or open my mouth, blood would just come out. So I'm sitting here shaking her. She's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Like, what is wrong with you? So I open my mouth, and like blood start pouring out. So she jump up scared, and she is not good in situations like that. So it was like, oh my gosh. And so I'm sitting here like, I'm about to die. And them was the only words I could get out. But I'm telling y'all, I kept repeating that. I was so scared. She's like, don't say that, don't say that. So I'm like, no. So I end up running to the kitchen to get a grocery bag so I can throw the blood up in. And so I get a bag, and I start throwing up in the bag, and then I go sit on the couch, and I realize there's a trail of blood from the kitchen all the way to the couch because that grocery bag had a hole in it. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I run back into the kitchen. Mind you, my girlfriend on the phone with the police, with the ambulance. And they're asking all these questions, and the dude, he's pissing me off because he's asking irrelevant questions. He hasn't even asked for the address, and he's too busy worried about what kind of medication I'm on. So I go over to the phone, and I'm throwing up all over the counter. I'm sitting here trying to yell at him, and I'm cussing him out. And I'm like, you need to quit asking all these irrelevant ass questions and send the ambulance. Like, I can tell them that when they get here, like, just send them. Like, you haven't even asked where I live at yet. So he's like, okay. So then I tell him the address, and he's still asking these questions. I tell her to hang up on him and call my mom. So I run back into the kitchen. While I'm in the kitchen, I try and grab another bag, and that one got a hole in it. So I'm still throwing up as all this is happening, and it's throwing up blood. So what did I do? So I had to throw that one away because that one had a hole in it. So I go and grab another one, and I double bag it, and I go sit on the couch. I'm still throwing up in that bag. So by the time the ambulance got there, it had been about 10 or 15 minutes. And as soon as they got there, it was pretty much over with. Like, I was done throwing up the blood. It was just a little bit coming up at a time. And I had filled, the last bag I had was filled to like maybe about this much blood. And mind y'all, this is not just thin blood. It's thin blood on top of blood clots. Like, it's all blood clots, all of it just coming out my throat. So I'm sitting here confused, like, is this coming out? Like, at first I thought it was coming out my stomach. So I went to the emergency room, and they looked at my throat, and they're like, yeah, you know, like a blood vessel in the back of your throat ruptured. And so then I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, like, we know you had a tonsillectomy, like, so did you drink anything like acidic, or like you had to have done something for it to get like this? And I was like, you know, one of y'all doctors, because I'm back at the same hospital I was where I had the surgery at, where I had the lady who done gave me the magnesium citrate, and now I'm in the emergency room. So I was like, one of y'all doctors upstairs gave me magnesium citrate when I asked her if it was a good thing to do, and she said yes. I was like, mind y'all, this is day 5 of post-op. I took the shot. An hour later, next thing you know, I'm throwing up blood. So the nurses and the doctors were like, yeah, that probably was not a good idea for her to do, knowing you just had a tonsillectomy. So I'm like, thank you. Like, I'm glad somebody realized that. So fast forward, I had to hold my throat open while the doctor took the little thing, you know, from the dentist's office where they put it in your mouth and they suction up all the spit. I basically had to hold my mouth wide open so he could stick that in the back of my throat and suck up all the blood clots. So that was nerve-wracking. So while he was doing that, the tube was clear. So he would stop every couple minutes so I could catch my breath, and I would look at it, and it's just so much blood and blood clots in that tube. So it's just crazy that, you know, all this was happening. So eventually they admit me. So I'm in hospital for 5 days. They kept me in there on a close watch to make sure that it didn't happen again, and they put my room next to the OR just in case I had to go back into surgery, and it would have been an emergency surgery. So I was pretty much on close watch for those 5 days. I couldn't eat, still couldn't eat. Mind y'all, I am a CNA, so when they put NP on the board, I already knew nothing by mouth. I can't eat anything. So 2 days later, so that's what, on my 3rd day, I end up asking the nurse if I can finally get switched to at least a mechanical soft diet or a ground diet. And she gets it approved, but then I try and eat it and I still can't swallow anything. I can't even eat. I can only eat ice cream, and the kitchen wouldn't let me get more than 1 little cup of ice cream. So it was just that little cup of ice cream twice a day and water. But they didn't even want me to drink water like that because they needed my system empty just in case I had to have emergency surgery while I was there. So that's how all that went. I eventually, on the 5th day, I was able to go home. And overall, that happened in July, and I got admitted July 15th. And I got out of the hospital July 20th, and I was able to eat my first meal, I will say August, about the end of August, I was able to have my first meal. And I think that was only because I had that, the rupture in my throat. So it took a little while longer for me to be able to eat. Would I have had the surgery? No. Like I said, if you don't have to have it done, I wouldn't do it just because, which most of the time you probably won't be able to get it done just because anyway. But definitely, I do not recommend. I was one of the rare people. I think they said it was like the chance of me actually having that happen, it was a 2 to 3% chance, and I was one of those 2 to 3% of people. But again, I think that was because of the magnesium citrate. That's my tonsillectomy story. I hope you guys enjoy. Anybody that's getting ready to go into surgery or that have had it, I would love to hear y'all stories. Any comments or questions, you guys know to leave that in the comment box at the bottom of this video. And don't forget to